Now, the word mindset is bounded around a lot when it comes to business and, of course, in riding coaching. And today I am joined by the fabulous Jenni Winter-Leach of Flying Changes Coaching. And we're talking all about her business, how she's managed to hit 10 years, her advice for anybody else that is starting out. But also, we're talking about her mindset training and programs to see if they're of any use to you. So, you ready? Let's dive in. You're listening to the Stable Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Bush, here to chat all things equine business with a new episode every week from me or from the best in the biz. Now, don't forget to leave a review and, of course, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode when it drops. So, Jenny, welcome to the Stable Business Podcast. I'm so excited to have you. So, for anybody that's listening, tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
So my name's Jenni Winter-Leach and I am a master mindset and performance psychology coach. So what that means is that I work with people's brains, basically, to help them overcome fear, anxiety, nerves, trauma, and to feel confident and be their best in whatever it wants to be. And so I specialise in horse riders. But I mean, I say it started off as me, but now it's a team of us. So you don't really get me so much now.
Yeah. And so I think it's really interesting, like the path of your business over the last couple of years and where it's sort of going. And I think we've got a lot of really cool things that we're going to discuss today. And so one of the things that I think you've been really, really passionate about, and as your business, I do a lot of mindset work. I've had coaches that do mindset work, and sometimes, it can be great and you can get great results, but there's also a few dangerous things out there if it's done wrong, and we need to be sort of aware of when you're sort of talking about like mindset. Like, what have you come across?
So I think the thing that a lot of people think is that, it's just a case of telling someone to be more positive, or it's just a case of telling them to think about something differently, or to say, it's okay, it doesn't matter. And on a surface level, like, that doesn't work, because we all know this stuff. Like, logically, we all know, like, just to get on with it or just to do it. But if things are getting in our way, then it means they're at a deeper level. And then in a sort of a much scarier, deeper way, there's the fact that many people, because everyone in some way is carrying some form of what we call trauma around. I don't want to get too much into detail on that one, but stuff that's holding us back, stuff that has been difficult for us over the years, even if we don't feel it was, if our brain thinks it was, then we're carrying that around. And it's very scary that I have this phrase that if you relive it, you retell it, you relive it. So, saying to someone, tell me about that thing that happened to you, thinking that you're helping them, it's actually making it worse and can re-traumatize people. So, from a business perspective, like, we work at the root cause rather than at the symptomatic level. And that's why our business is thriving, because that's what we do. Whereas there are a lot of people that think you can just touch on the symptoms, or they've read a bit about it and therefore they think they can do it. And I always say it's a bit like, just because I've had an operation on my wrist and I can talk about the example of that. I haven't had any operations. But just because I've had that done, for instance, means that I can then go and operate on someone else's. And that's not how it works. Like, just because you've read the books or you've done the online programs or anything like that, you're not qualified to be able to do this with other people, because you're playing with their brain. And you can actually, like, cause more problems. So that's kind of like my soapbox, really.
Yeah, I think, and it's so important. And I think especially we're horse people, so I think we get it from a different energetic level anyway, because horses naturally, often they come to us and we're often aware that they've got things in their brains, things in their heads that we have to deal with. But when it comes to actually working with people, sometimes we're not so considerate. And have you noticed that? Like, people are, I'll just get on with it.
And I think, in riding, if we look at traditional riding instruction, where did it come from? It came from the military. So you had to get back on and do it. And it was really important, because actually you're more likely to die if you didn't get back on and do it than you were if you were off the horse. So that kind of stuck for a long time. Now, I do think that, that isn't the way of it anymore. It's definitely changed. But there are still, people are like, it's about riding, it's not about emotion. But it is about emotion. We're emotional beings, and our horses are taking this on as well. And I feel like the sort of where I've been approaching this from over the years is that I want to do it to help the horses, but I'm doing it through the human, because there are a lot of people helping the horses with stuff, which is great. But if you've got a human who's scared, anxious, nervous, and therefore their body is responding in that tense way, and they're being maybe angry or upset or frustrated, and that's the stuff that's coming out because of it. Their poor horse is having to deal with that. And like, to me, that's where I want to help the horses, because if we're not turning up like that to our horse, then our horse isn't having to deal with it. And I know a lot of instructors, for instance, are like, oh, I'm more like a therapist than an instructor because I'm having to deal with all the emotional side of the rider. But yeah, you are, like, because you have to, because we have to be in a good emotional place to get the best out of our horse. So if you're not in that place and you're trying to instruct someone, or the client isn't in that place and you're trying to instruct them, for instance, then you're going to really struggle to help them get to that place through just using skills and body and trying to get the horse to move differently in itself. Like, that it's not enough of a skills package.
That makes total sense. I mean, we've all been on that carousel where we've got on the horse and we're not okay today, and the horse is almost like, what's going on, and it never ends well. Never ever ends well, does it? So like, what have you and your team been able to do to help people who are in that situation? Like, how does it work?
So the thing with mindset is, when I say my team, so I've trained up coaches, licensed coaches, to be able to coach within our programs. And so they have access to all of the rewiring videos and things that we have within our programs that actually do the work. But as a coach, what our role is as a mindset coach is to listen to people's language and to hear the kind of things that they're saying, because that's what gives us the clues as to what's going on for them. And then, so we're like little investigators. We're asking questions and we're listening to things, and we're kind of listening to the answer. But what we're really listening to is like what's beyond the answer, and then asking stuff back to help support them, to help them really to then start to not just come up with their own answers, because if they knew the answers like completely by themselves, they would just come up with it, but to send them then in the right direction to whatever resource it is that they need to change that brain wiring and to change that pattern of thinking. And that can be related back to accidents, it can be related back to things other people have said, it can be related to situations that they're in, it could be related to things that they think might happen even though they perhaps haven't, previous horses that have done things even though their current one isn't, lots of things like that, and also performance issues. So it's not just like fear, and by the way, fear isn't just of physical pain. Fear can very much be of emotional pain as well, and feeling a certain way. But it can also be performance related issues, which is normally emotional fear, which is fear of judgment, or fear of failure, or fear of letting people down, or fear of looking silly, or fear of people not thinking you're good enough, and that kind of thing. That's where we then get to sort of performance issues, performance anxiety as well. So as a team, like in our programs, we deal with, you name it, we deal with it in some range or another, in every possible discipline, in every possible level, all the way from like grassroots all the way up to Grand Prix. I personally work with Team GB riders as well. So yeah, like, just you name it, we've worked with it.
Yeah, it's the case. Like, some people are like, oh, I might not need that. But I think at every single level, there is an element of mindset. And there's always that new level, new devil that comes out. So even once you've done some mindset work, and I'll often have clients that say to me, oh, but I've done that. And it's like, okay, but we might need to go a little bit deeper. You've just scratched the surface and we've still not really got to what's going on. Because sometimes we put all these blocks up, don't we, just to sort of safeguard ourselves and make sure that we don't
Absolutely.
let our guards down. And I think it's like, especially with the equestrian business, or whether it's working with riders, there's always that level of not wanting to let that guard down, let that guard slip, because they're worried about what somebody's going to think or if something's going to happen. Like, how do you, as sort of a mindset coach, how do you approach that when somebody is really, really sort of guarded, they're not letting that barrier down?
So I think the thing we have to remember is that our brain is always just trying to keep us safe. That is its mode of operandum. Like, it can't do anything else. And so if we are behaving in a certain way, or doing something, or not doing something that we want to be, and our brain is just stopping us, like we're putting a layer of protection up, or we're doing something we don't really want to be doing but we can't get around it, or we're stuck in a habit, it'll be because our brain is basically waking up every morning and going, what did I do this morning or yesterday? Well, that worked, I'll do that again then. And because that's kind of, it works on that really primal unconscious level. And we have something called secondary gain as well, which is a marvelously interesting thing, which is, even if we're doing something we don't really want to be doing, if we can't change it and stop it, we must be getting something from it. And it'll all be safety and protection, like you said. So if in business you really want to do something, but something's holding you back, I'm guaranteed it'll be a fear of something. It'll be a fear because you did it before and it didn't go quite how you wanted and you don't want to repeat that mistake, or it was emotionally painful or financially painful, or you were embarrassed by something, or someone said something horrible, or a client was nasty, or a customer tried to return something that you didn't think they needed to, or I mean, there's just so many reasons. And what our brain says is, oh, I didn't really like that, I'd rather that didn't happen again. And it tries to protect us from it. So it'll come up with all these reasons and excuses. And it's exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about riding or business or anything in life, anything at all. And by the way, everything that we do, if you just apply another word to it rather than riding, like, you can apply it to other things in life. Because mind is mind. Like, this isn't anything specific to riders. The only difference is we get on another sentient being and want it to do what we want it to do. Like, that's the only nuance to it, to anything else. So yes, so when we find we're not able to do something, guaranteed, fear might feel like quite a strong word, but I guarantee you there's some kind of fear or blocker in the way.
Yeah, and I see it a lot with my clients, and even like with riders, because I've done my fair bit of riding coaching as well, and yeah, sometimes it's having those tools in your bag to be able to find different ways of doing things, different questions to ask. And I think that's what's really sort of lovely about like the program that you are launching in terms of your licensed coach. It's about giving people that extra string to the bow. And how would tell people a little bit more about what your plans are with that and how you're doing that?
Yeah, so we have launched our licensed coach program before, and we've got 15 people already who are trained. And the reason that I did it was because I wanted to start sharing this further and wide, and I can only do a certain amount. So the best way to spread yourself further is to train other people to do what you do, and therefore help more people. And so they have absolutely loved it. They've got so much from it. And you know what's amazing is when we were at the National Equine Show the other weekend, I had a lot of my team were there helping out, and I was overhearing, I wasn't listening in, I was overhearing conversations, and they were so passionate about this stuff, and they were just getting it so spot on with people as to what they were saying, and the information they were giving, or the questions they were asking, that I was really, really proud that they're incredible. Some of them are better than me. I mean, there is no doubt about it. Some of them are better than me, which is just amazing. And they've all got different backgrounds as well, and different information and knowledge. So they add that in as well, which just makes it even more powerful. And so the program, so we've tweaked it and we're relaunching it. So that the first level of it's not new. But basically what I want to make sure is that this is all accredited and it's a qualification. So you're not just learning about the theory and then hoping you can regurgitate it, or telling someone to do something different, because like we've just said, their brain isn't going to do that if it doesn't feel that that's the right thing to do. You need to get into root cause stuff and not just symptomatic things. So there's no point just telling someone to breathe if they're worried. You need to work out why they're worried, but there's no point just saying, why are you worried? And then when they tell you, go, well, it doesn't matter, you'll be fine. Like, we need to get into why is that a problem in the brain. And so one of the really important things I find, like I was saying earlier about, it's all very well having had something happen to you, but that doesn't then make you qualified to teach others, because there are things that can go wrong. You can actually make stuff worse for people. If you keep letting them retell you things, they'll keep reliving it, and that pattern will get stronger. If you start giving them advice that's not right for them, you can then start them thinking that there's a problem that they can't fix, when actually they can. It's just you've been advising them rather than helping them work it out. Or, like, we've got some things that we work with where riders have had an accident or something. It could be like 20 odd years ago. And we help the brain to let go of that by what the word is called dissociation from it, but in a very clever way. Not just burying it deep in a box and hoping it's gone, because that's actually just burying trauma. So, when you know what you should and shouldn't be doing in this stuff, then we talk about safety from a riding perspective. And it really is safety as well, because it's not just safety from a brain perspective, it's safety from a riding perspective. Because if someone's scared and they're riding their horse and what you've done hasn't helped them and they've gone into freeze mode, then they are not then able to process, make decisions, aid the horse correctly. it's actually dangerous. What's really important for me is to raise the bar in the industry. And the way that I'm doing that is through external accreditation. So not only are we getting all of the, like the BHS, the ABRS, the RDA, the Pony Club to approve this stuff so that people can get CPD points. That's kind of like, that's important because I know people need that stuff. But it's deeper than that for me. It's also about external accreditation. So we're actually getting it accredited by the CPD service, which is a global external accreditation service that accredits anything that is to do with development and gives it a stamp of approval that it's hit a certain mark. So in order to get anything accredited by them, it has to be really good stuff, and like delivered very well and of a professional standard. So we're getting accredited by them. We're getting it accredited by what's called the International Coaching Federation. Again, none of this stuff is riding related. CPD, ICF, they're nothing. They're like global industry. And then the second level that we're releasing of the licensed coach is actually a master's level qualification in trauma, so that you really do understand this stuff and you come out with a level 7 from the CMI, which is the Chartered Management Institute. So, it's not getting qualifications for the sake of bits of paper. It's getting qualifications so that people who come to you know you're of a certain standard, and also so that we can make sure anyone who's got our name attached to them, because they'll be operating as a coach under our brand, they can say we're a Flying Changes coach, that they are hitting a certain standard and that they're safe and that they're actually going to make a difference for people, rather than just kind of like having a bit of knowledge because they've done a bit of an online course and think they can do it. And actually then people end up coming to us and saying, oh, I've tried this before and it didn't work. I think it's actually made me worse. And that's really difficult then. I'm sure you've probably had this, Jen, where people have had coaching before and you've sort of said, oh, I think you need some business coaching, or I think you need some mindset. And they've gone, oh, yeah, I've done that. It didn't really work. And it's like anything, isn't it? If you've had a bad teacher at school, it doesn't mean school doesn't work. It just means you haven't had a good teacher. And this is kind of like, I'm really passionate about the fact that there are some people who are calling them mindset coaches out there who are not qualified, they're not trained, they don't have the experience, they haven't done the hours required to know what they're doing, and they're calling themselves anything to do with the word mindset because it's a really like buzzword at the moment, or performance, and they're actually making things worse, and they're giving those of us that really do make a difference and really can change people's lives and make their riding better, they're giving us a bad rep because people go, oh, that doesn't work. And it's painful.
Yeah. I've had it an awful lot where people have been like, oh no, it's just all no, it doesn't work. Or they've been like, I've been to a coach and I paid thousands of pounds and I'm actually making less money than I did before I worked with that coach, because actually they've pulled up a whole lot more self-doubt, especially if they've already had lack of self-worth issues and they've never really had the support to get to it, or they've never had the tools. And I think this is so important, like even if you've already done some level of mindset, some level of NLP. So I think, it's much like with horses, with a horse you should never stop learning. And I think as well, like I think it's almost like actually any opportunity to find more tools, different ways of doing it, is an amazing thing. So like if somebody's already said, oh well, I've got some mindset stuff, or I've done NLP, would your licensed coach be any good for them, or do you think they'd be learning the same thing that they'd always learn?
No, never. For exactly the reason you've just said there, is because you always learn something different. So in our I haven't 100% confirmed what the different names of the levels are going to be yet, but in the first level, yes, there is an NLP practitioner qualification, because that's the very, very basic I would ever be okay with someone having before they even attempted any of this. But firstly, it's done probably in a slightly different way, so you've probably done it before, through a company that I absolutely highly rate. There are two companies in my NLP journey that I rate really highly, and these guys are one of them, and the other one, they've now retired. And so you always pick up something different. I actually went back after doing my qualifications and re-watched stuff and, went back on the training, because there's always stuff you miss, isn't there? I mean, there's so much involved,
especially
that
with
there
NLP,
is stuff you miss.
there's so many different sort of models and modalities and things like that. And even once you've done it, it's like the next time you go back to it, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot I could do that. And like, because I've got NLP training, but I'm not using it with every client, a lot of what I do is sort of tools, strategy stuff, and every now and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I could go through that with them. But yeah, and it's
Well,
having that,
exactly.
yeah, that
Yeah,
support. So
so that's good. Yeah, it is. It's about having that support as well. But I think the other thing is that even if you've already got an NLP practitioner, that's fine. You just tell us, because you don't need the qualification element of it, and we just won't put you through that part of the course, because it's not just here's a qualification and that's the course. What you get on top of it is my interpretation then. So my element of how does this work within riding? Where would you use this stuff? How would you practice it? How is it relevant? What's the kind of language we'd use? Because NLP language is the worst thing possible. So I use a completely different language when it comes to NLP. I have got a whole system of normal language NLP, so that you're not using words that mean nothing to people, because it just turns them off. So you're learning all of that side of it. And then you're also in the first level learning really good, like internationally recognized, world-class coaching methodology as well. So how do you coach someone one-to-one? So whether that be on the horse or off the horse, because of course it is slightly different on the horse to off the horse, obviously. And equally, when someone's on the horse, you're giving them a lot more information to take on board and do. Whereas when you're working, as you know, one-to-one with someone, like over Zoom or in person, and they're not on the horse, it is a different kind of conversation. And so, you'll be learning all of that. And then the second level to it is this master's level in trauma-informed coaching, which is just so powerful. And then a master's, not a master's level, but the next level of coaching competency. So then, advanced coaching stuff. And then again, intertwined with the rider element of it, so that it becomes relevant to horse riding. Because when I did all of my qualifications, in fact, all of the qualifications I've done have not been horse riding qualifications at all, like as in mindset. They've been generic mindset, trauma, any modality I've done has not been with someone who has anything to do with horses. I've brought it all into the equine industry and added that language in, so that people then can make it relevant into that industry. So that's what you're getting. So you could go and do any of this stuff somewhere else. If you wanted to just go and do it, you could, but it would cost you more, and you're not going to get the equestrian element of it. No, of course you can take that and go and use it wherever you want. Doesn't have to be equestrian at all. You'll be qualified in these things which aren't equestrian specific, but to take it into the equestrian industry is just then really easy.
Yeah. And do you find that people then say, well, everybody's doing mindset, like if I was to go and do a mindset course, why would people choose me? Because everybody's doing that. Like what's your take on that, sort of in terms of like competition when it comes to mindset coaching?
So firstly, I don't think everyone is doing mindset coaching at all. I think there are a lot of people that are using the word but aren't doing it properly. I think a lot of people have put the word confidence into their coaching, but that just means they're sort of able to help riders increase their skill a little bit, but they can't help them overcome fear. Not really, not truly, deeply. So the way that we work, like I said, is root cause. So if you come to us for qualification, then what it's really about is helping you to actually rewire someone's brain, so they can let go of past experience, let go of issues and move forward. So it's like really transformative stuff. So it's not your kind of average mindset coaching, well, let's just look at that in a different frame, or let's think about that a bit differently, or go on, you'll be fine, won't you? Or just push your comfort zone, it'll be all right. We teach you that kind of theory, but that's what I call like the symptomatic theory. You need to know it. It's really basic, but we teach you like how to actually change someone's brain in a really safe way.
Yeah.
That's my caveat all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
and that is so important. Like there's touching on the safety, because we've talked about the trauma informed part, and so this is kind of like, when you're coaching people, and I have this a lot, I always have to be super careful. There is only a level that I can help up to, and then we must know when actually we need to let our egos aside and go, actually you need to get professional medical treatment.
yeah,
So that
we
is a
cover that.
really key part into that, isn't it? Like you're building that in.
Really key. So we cover like ethics, we cover when to refer, we cover what is and isn't in your remit, what you are and are not qualified to be doing, how you can bring this into your business, how you can create a business out of this as well. And I mean, I know, Jenny, one of the things that you're giving us is a bonus, which is your foundations hub, stable foundations hub, which is the business basics as well. So if you're thinking, oh, like I'm stuck in a job or something, or I'm doing something I don't really want to be doing, actually I'd love to qualify in this and then set up a business in it. then there's even that side to it. So we cover like all of the stuff that you need to really go with this in a very safe, in a very clear, concise, ethical, authentic way, because that's just really important to me.
Yeah. And again, I think it's so important when somebody's looking for, like, if they're thinking, if you're running a business and you're looking for somebody that wants a mindset coach, actually every single mindset coach has got a different level of experience, personal experiences as well. And I think actually having more people that are able to help with these things can really benefit everything. And there's always those ripples, aren't there? Like we've had conversations around this before. It's like the ripple effect. Like, what do people really get once they've done this? Like, is this going to give them something that they can use in their everyday life? Is this going to help them to get more money into their day jobs? You know, I mean, if they're not running an equine business, like, yeah, what other ripples do you see from your clients?
Oh, huge. I mean, like just being able to see things for what they are, like being able to spot people's behaviors, being able to realize it's not all about you, like it might be their stuff that's causing you a problem. Being able to just go and do what you enjoy and not care about what other people think or what the yard's going to say. Changing yards, realizing maybe you're not with the right horse. Just that kind of happiness and the equine element, and then take it into a job or a career, and being able to have conversations with people, being able to lead people better, being able to coach your clients, your team, being able to work with them better, being able to have a conversation with your boss that might be difficult, going for the pay rise or oh, can't think of the word, where you get the next level up of job.
Yes,
I used to work
yes.
in talent management. Promotion word
Promotions.
hasn't been about for a long time, clearly. But getting the promotion that you want, that maybe you were fearful of going for, or feeling good enough to go for the interview, or changing career. I mean, honestly, I cannot tell you how many things it affects, because once you start to realize how your brain is working for or against you, and maybe what's holding you back, and what to actually do about it, not just knowing the theory. Like I've said, you can probably see behind me, there's a whole load of books. Unfortunately, there's Ant Middleton books behind me, because that's my flipping husband. But I do read them. They're awful. Because he says, feel the fear and do it anyway, which, quite frankly, if you are in the army, that's what you have to do. But we're not in the army, guys. We're riding horses, so you don't need to. That's an aside. But, we call this, if you've just got loads of books and you're reading the books and it's great, but you're not doing anything with it and it's not actually making any changes, we call that shelf development instead of self-development. So, it's one thing knowing the theory and reading the books, and even having a degree in psychology. Like, I get people come to me that say, I've got a degree in psychology, I know this stuff, but I can't change it. And I say, but that's okay, because everyone needs a coach. Like, you can't see the label from inside the bottle is one of my favorite quotes from one of my mentors. And it's so true, isn't it? Like, everyone needs to develop this stuff so that they have a greater understanding of themselves and others and better awareness, because honestly, the changes, like the ripple effect, is huge. I mean,
Yes.
if you thought about it, if you did something like this and then you went for that promotion in your job and you earned more money, and then you could change livery yards and you could have the horse that you wanted and you could go out and just enjoy yourself more, like, my God, wouldn't it be worth it? That's without even being an equestrian coach. You can literally change people's lives.
Yeah, it all ripples down. It all ripples down. I know even the stuff that I've done. And so it's funny when you say, or people say, oh yeah, I've got a degree in psychology and I still can't implement. And there is that level of action and implementation that requires that support. It requires, again, working through whatever it is that's going on that's causing you to procrastinate. And I get that a lot with people. They come in, they're like, oh yeah, I've got an equine business degree and I still can't work out my business. And it's like, yeah, because actually sometimes we've got to work out how to apply it to you. And when you haven't got anybody there showing you different ways of doing things, it's like, actually, whatever you learned in your business degree might not actually be what you need right now. And it
I mean,
changes.
perfect case for you. I am a mindset coach at the highest level. I've got all the qualifications that you could need to doing what I do, and I have a business degree. Okay, so you would have thought that without any doubt about it, I could just do everything I needed to have an absolutely stonkingly thriving business without any problems. But you don't, because that's not life. Like, I have you as a business coach because you sit there and you'll say, have you noticed this? Did you see that? I have to coach myself continuously because I sit and think, why am I not doing that? What's going on? I had someone turn around to me the other day and said, Jen, that's a mindset problem. Did you realize that? I was like, no, because I didn't realize that I'd got hurt in the past by doing something wrong. and I'd been avoiding doing it again. And it's mad, but we all need a coach. We all need to be coached. We've all got blind spots, but learning and understanding the theory of that then helps us to go, okay, yeah, no, I can see why that's happening. Rather than saying, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be, I'm not going to be able to do this. Everyone else can do it, and I can't. It's not for me. It's easy for everyone else. It's okay if you've got this. It's all right if you've got the lorry, the horse, the money, the instructor, if they live next door to you, blah blah. All of that, they're just excuses, really. They're
Yeah.
not the reason why. Case in point, Anna Ross, very good client of mine now and a sponsored rider, so I can talk about her, came from nothing. Came from literally nothing. Had, lived in London, didn't have any, they weren't like poor, but her parents weren't horsey in any way. She had to go and work 3 jobs to be able to afford riding lessons, and she worked blooming hard all the way up to where she is now on, the Team GB. And I always talk about Anna because she is the epitome of, well, they're just excuses. Like, if she wants something, she's going to get it. Like, by hook or by crook is she. Hence why she got in touch with me, because she realised she actually wanted to ride her youngsters. She's got some lovely 3 and 4 year olds, but she wasn't, and realised she was fearful. And contacted me and went, Jen, you're not going to believe this. I'd never spoken to her before in my life. I need your help with fear. I went, what? Anna Ross? You're joking me. What are you fearful of? No, like, everyone's fearful of you. Like, have you seen your column in Horse and Ham? But yeah, and, so we went through that, and it was brilliant. So at any level, this stuff can get in our way.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what certificates we've managed to put on our wall to make ourselves feel good. Yeah, it's still sometimes we're too close to it. We need that perspective. There's a lot of emotion that goes along with it as well. Like, say, even if it's just like fear, it's easier to tell if it's emotional when it comes down to your riding, because you feel it. But in business, it's much harder to go, actually, that's emotion and that's ego. And actually, that's a mindset issue and an energy issue. And even then, I've got a client recently, and we're struggling with. She doesn't want to get clients, and I think the root cause is basically she's had some bad experiences with clients in the past, and now she's not getting clients because her marketing isn't hitting the note. Because deep down inside, her brain's going, "No, you were safer without clients because they were horrible, weren't they?"
Yep.
And we have to work
that's what
through.
it means. It's mad.
All of that stuff, even when we don't think it is the case. And I know I've had a lot of stuff where I've done through money mindset, and I'd say I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't had a coach that went through some of the mindset stuff with me, because there was nothing wrong with my strategies and everything, but it was a mindset issue. And I often talk about the money mindset thing, like, goes back to even like my childhood. Something stupid that was holding me back from making more money was basically my granddad gave me £1 one day, put it in the middle of my hand, and then took it away and said, I bet you'll cry before 12 o'clock. So again, I was only tiny. I don't know. I think I must have been about 4 or 5. So I assumed that if you give me money, you're going to take it away, and you're going to try and make me cry, and it's going to hurt. And all of that stuff I had to unpack, just because we often don't even remember some of this stuff.
No, we don't. And I would call that trauma. People would be like, what? That wasn't traumatic. But it is. For a 4 or 5 year old, something like that is traumatic to their brain. And it sticks because then the brain protects itself from it. So it's all that kind of stuff. It's madness, isn't it?
Super traumatic because everybody laughed. They found it funny. I'd got other people, they were doing that at my expense, and I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew that I wanted to go down the road and get sweets with this £1 that he'd given me, and then he took it away. And it was just like, what's going on? And it can be something so simple and innocent. It doesn't necessarily have to be something big and horrific to cause that problem. So I was just going to say, if somebody was thinking about moving forward and doing your licensed coaching program, what would they need to do, Jenny?
So the first thing is to hop onto our wait list, and then we know they're definitely interested in it. And then we'll start emailing out information, and you'll start seeing things on our socials and things. But the best thing to do is make sure you're on our email list, and then that way you will definitely get the information come out to you. And then you'll be seeing things about what we're going to do for the next steps. And then we'll be doing a masterclass, for want of a better word, but we'll be doing a free webinar for people. That means you can hop on, find out about it, find out how it's useful for you, what kind of stuff it covers, answer any questions and things like that. And then we'll be opening it up ready to get going in June, end of May, June. So yeah.
So I'll make sure I put the link to the waitlist. I'll get Jenny to send that to me. I'll put it into the show notes. And again, if somebody was just sort of curious about what you're doing, I know that you've got the video from like the National Equine Show up and running for people to watch that. why should they go and watch that? Because it was a brilliant talk. I was actually there live filming some of it myself. So why should people go and get that, even if they're not sort of interested in doing the licensed coach? I think it would be really good.
I mean, obviously we're talking about licensed coach at the moment because that's the program that we're just about to launch. But obviously our bread and butter is working individually with clients who want to overcome this stuff themselves and have no inkling at all to become a coach. So that is absolutely like what we work with. And our programs and stuff cover all the things that we've been talking about as far as overcoming the root cause of problems. So the talk talks about what is fear, anxiety, nerves, trauma, what all those different things are, how they affect us as horse riding in probably some obvious ways, but in some really not at all obvious ways. Why the brain is doing that and what we need to do to overcome that stuff. So it's one of those things where, there is nothing wrong with learning theory. Theory is really important because theory helps us understand things. So it is the theory element to help you while you're struggling or fearful or frustrated or getting annoyed, or while your husband turns around every time you go home and says, why don't you just give it up? And you just want to hit him. Or your friends who aren't horsey are like, I don't understand. You don't enjoy it. Why don't you just give it up? But we won't. We don't. We're horse riders. It's like saying chop off a leg. So that it helps you understand why, even though you don't want to feel a certain way, you still are, because it's not about willpower. It is not about willpower at all. It's about really understanding the brain. So that's what that talk covers. And so you can watch that for free, and then there's an offer actually on our Fear to Fun course, which it really delves into the theory of our nervous systems and what they do and why they do it, so that you can really start to understand why you are not in control of this stuff, and why you do need to go and get someone to help you out with it, because you're not consciously in control of any of this. None of us are. But when we start to understand it, then we know what we can do about it. It's a bit like a horse, really. We're never really in control of our horse. We're influencing them. We're never really in control. It does feel like it sometimes, but that's only when they let us. So it's exactly the same with your brain.
So there's always those crazy moments. Crazy moments with horses. Even then now, like I'm sitting here with very bruised, broken ribs because my horse had a spook and just decided to jump the fence next to me and took the fence and the gatepost and me all out all at the same time. And so I've now got broken ribs from that. And it was it's just we're never really in control. Even though he was chilled, he was cool, he was fine. Just something made him go, I've got to run. And I took the brunt of it. And so I think that's always the case. And then thinking, again, it's like how we learn in our brain once we have an incident like that, how we talk about it, how we think about it. Because otherwise the brain has got this thing to tell the story over and over and over and over and grow it. And then the fear comes and you think, I can't even handle this anymore. I can't even be around it. If I can't even let him be loose in a fenced off like yard, and you have to be super careful. So I think it's a really good thing to go and watch that. It was an awesome talk. I was there live, and one of the great things as well about going to the National Equine shows, I got to meet a lot of your team who are just amazing at what they do, and so helpful, and you could see the passion at what they're doing. And also because you were celebrating 10 years 10 years of Flying Taders coaching, which is quite sort of quite a big level, I'd say. And so, what would you say over the last 10 years, would be your key business advice to anybody?
Well, and actually what's been really interesting is how many people I've seen come and go during that time who have done this, but they have been just doing it in a different way. So the biggest thing that I have always done in business, and I think it's because I didn't come from a horsey background, I came from a corporate background. And then I burnt out of the corporate world, decided I really didn't want to do it. I had one of these high-flying jobs, literally flying all over the place and not really seeing my horse. And I wanted to combine my passions. So I went, right, I understand about the mindset element. I'm qualified in that and I love horses. Let's bring the two together. So 10 years ago, that's what I did. But it means I've always got this slightly different viewpoint, and I'm definitely an entrepreneur as well, which is a blessing and a curse. Because what I do is I go to non-horsey masterminds. I go to non-horsey coaches. You're my only horsey coach, actually, equine related one. And even then I denied about whether to come to you or not, whether it was a good thing. So I go to things that are outside of our equestrian realm and go, right, how can I make that work in our industry? Because we're about 10 years behind most things, to be fair. We really are. If we look at other industries, it's madness. especially in sport, how far behind things we are, because we can blame so much of it on the horse, and actually that's not the case. I mean, yes, there's an element to it, isn't it? Obviously, but yeah. So one thing is look outside of your industry for best practice and what means that people are doing well, and then bring that into your industry. The other is always have a coach or a mentor, always, because it's really lonely when you're on your own and you're stuck in your own head and you're not moving forward and you are scared and you are bothered about things, and you're probably surrounded with people who are thinking the same kind of stuff, which is keeps you there even more. And what you need to do is you need to go and find someone who's either been and done what you want to do and doing it successfully, or can help you to get there by looking at your blind spots and the things that you're putting in your own way. So that is like absolutely key. So go outside your industry, find someone who can see your label from outside the bottle because you're in it. And then the other one is you've just got to learn from your mistakes and be okay with making them. And I know that everyone bands this around. It's not failure, it's only feedback. But I cannot tell you how many times I've failed. It's been embarrassing. It's been painful. It's been financially painful. I've hit rock bottom. I got to one day, I had £5 left in the account. I needed to put fuel in my car to get to a client, and I genuinely didn't know what I was going to do about that. I can't remember how I got out of it, but I obviously did. So we've all gotten, and sometimes you have to get to rock bottom before you can decide to go up. And, definitely one thing that's made a difference was that I've now got a 15-month-old daughter. And when obviously I knew I was going to be having her for about 8 months before she arrived. She did arrive at 8 months. She didn't quite get to 9, but that's my daughter. That's impatient like me. But she, her coming early threw everything upside down. Like, the business was not ready. We hadn't quite finished training our coaches that were going to take on some of the work. Our new business system wasn't in place, so we couldn't sell anything because there was nothing to sell. Like, honestly, I went for 3 months without cash flow, and I had to sit there and think, do I want this? Because I had a newborn baby, I had a business making no money. I mean, I still had a roof over my head because I have an incredibly supportive husband. But, like, I was at the brink of having to lose my horses and everything. I had just bought a Lusitano from Portugal to compete internationally with, and then fell pregnant. So that was not in the plan. Like, she was not in any plan, I can tell you. And I had to really decide whether I wanted the business or not. And it was horrible. It was a horrible place to be. And I nearly jacked it all in. And that would have been 9 years we'd been in business, it would have gone. And I had to make that decision. And I had to just accept that I was going to have to learn from some of the mistakes I'd made. And it was going to be painful to do that. But I was going to have to do some things again that I didn't want to do because they were horrid in the past, or I'd done them wrong. But I was just going to have to relearn some stuff. And that's what I did. And, we're thriving again now, 15 months on. But that was hard. So, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been willing to learn from the mistakes that I'd made. Now, if we were going to change systems again in the future, I would not bring them down. I would be running them alongside each other. Little things like that make a big difference. Equally, if I was ever pregnant again, which I will not be, I will have a definite plan in place for if something was to happen. So it's taught me a lot of things, but it's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'd be my 3 things. Look outside the industry, make sure you get support of a help or a coach or a mentor. And then, you have to learn from your mistakes, as painful as they might be, which is where your coach or mentor comes in generally and helps, because they're either going to stop you making that mistake, or they'll stop you making it again, or they'll help you learn from the previous one. And that's why they're so key.
Yeah, definitely, because it's so easy to allow your mindset, especially if you've got all those little old gremlins, to run riot at those moments when you're low. We all have those moments where business gets low, and we have the high points, and it's like, how do you pivot? So I often talk about like the scales of training and how that applies to business, and like it's about finding that rhythm. And then of course it's suppleness, and you've got to be able to be supple and go, okay, that didn't work, and not beat yourself up when it didn't work. And I'll often talk about all the mistakes that I made and how my last business I closed in an awful lot of debt and thinking I was the worst thing ever, and how I had to overcome that. And one of the key things about getting this business working was to actually say, like, give myself that talking to and say, right, okay, if I was to do everything that I avoided doing, which again was one of them, was I avoided getting a coach because I thought, I haven't got enough money, I can't afford a coach, they're going to look at me and go, what are you doing? You've got this is a mess. Like, why do you look? Because again, I looked great on the outside. Everybody would look in and go, oh yeah, it's brilliant, it's going really well, and I didn't want to let my guard down and actually go, it's not worth, I've got no money, and and all of this stuff. And so that was the first thing. So the first thing I did differently was to actually go, right, okay, I'm going to get help. I'm going to get help. And I hired my coach literally, I put a post out, and then I was like, oh, I'm getting the coach now. I hadn't even made any money. I just had somebody say yes, and they would work with me, and just suddenly thought, oh, I need help. But if I hadn't made that, I wouldn't be where I am. And it's not just been the ripples in my business, it's been the things that it changed outside the business as well. There were other things that were going on in my life where my coach actually paid me a visit and sat on my sofa to start the first session, and she looked at just like, oh my goodness, like nobody respects your time. They were coming in, they were coming out, they're mum, because my girls were little at the time. She's like, oh, we've got to get your boundaries, we've got to get some boundaries. And so those sorts of things rippled down, not just in business, but my life is totally different now. And I think those are such important lessons, Jenni. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes. But if you were to leave everybody with one final piece of wisdom, like what would you say is like your thing that's you've held on to throughout your business and your work in life that you think has really helped you?
So I think for me, it has been this concept of the best thing you can ever invest in is yourself, because it doesn't matter where you go, your brain goes with you. And if you are stuck and you learn some more stuff to help you put in that toolbox, then you are less likely to be quite so stuck again in the future. And it doesn't matter what you are doing on the outside. If you are developing yourself on the inside, then you can stop and change and pivot, and it's fine. You can do that because you're developing that confidence and trust in yourself, and that goes beyond anything ever.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, and good luck with everything that's going forward in the Licensed Coach, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.